The headline for this year's Trust Barometer has to be the fundamental reshaping of the landscape of trust, because it used to be that business had to be intertwined with government in order to have trust. Now, today, we believe that business has to set the context for change, that business has to lead, but it has to lead differently. Not calling for self-regulation, but actually establishing why and how, not just what. Trust in the U.S. government now is in the mid-30s. That's the lowest we've seen. Numbers we're seeing in Italy, Spain, and France are in the teens for trust in government. So it's really a complete throw the bums out, and watch for what might happen in the European Parliament elections this summer. I do see the threat of populism. I see it in very low numbers, again, in Western Europe for banks in the general population. Again, we're talking about 20% trust in Germany, which is a quite robust economy for trust in banking. So the potential for populism, for being against free trade, for being very nativist, is very real. In the developing markets, trust in business couldn't be more robust. In China, Indonesia. But in the West, what's happened is since the 2008-9 collapse, business has gradually been building up, but what we now see is a plateau. It's not going up anymore. It's sort of run its course. But what you're left with, though, is a vast gap in trust between business and government. So in the United States, it's 21 points, again, the largest we've ever seen. In markets like Brazil, it's 35 points. In South Africa, it's 45 points. So the natural inclination of business would be to say, well, we're back to the good times, let's deregulate. And that would be exactly the wrong conclusion to draw, because again, our data shows clearly that in financial services, food, and energy, by a 4-to-1 margin, people want more regulation. Which you may say, well, that's contradictory. But in fact, people in their cerebral cortex still remember 08-09. They don't like government, but they don't trust business enough to do it on their own, to self-regulate. I think the new role for the CEO is to be the Chief Engagement Officer. That in fact, if you're going to actually ascend the bully pulpit, to quote Teddy Roosevelt, and that's a job that traditionally has been done by government. Here's the rules and here's the playing field. Business has to do that now. And that means business has to talk to audiences it's not traditionally accustomed to. That a CEO is going to have to go and meet the community and have an open community meeting and actually make relationships personally and listen, and not just go and formulate policy, but listen first and participate in the community. Only then be an advocate and play the outside game, not the inside game. Business, 65% of people say that big business has too much political influence. That is a clear sign that we've got to stop playing the inside game in Brussels and London and Beijing. We've got to start playing the outside game and talking to people in a real conversation and changing policy when necessary, and only then being an advocate. We actually have looked carefully at the most respected companies and others, and we've come up with our own group of 16 factors. What we find is that the most important criteria is no longer, this is since 2008, it used to be, do you have great operations and do you have a great new product machine? And those were the things that really drove trust. Well, since 2008, operations has actually moved down the list of importance. Companies still do it well. They still make money, they still have respected CEOs. But the new gold is actually in engagement and integrity. So you look at a company like PepsiCo in Illinois, her ability to treat employees well, to put value on a sustainable product array, to persuade, in fact, people behind her to follow on this idea of better for you foods and recasting the portfolio, not just soda and chips, but oatmeal and other things. This is the gold. So in fact, then, the key things are pay the right amount of tax, do right by your employees, run a responsible supply chain, and engage, communicate frequently. Those are the new normal. for a chief executive.